Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Draw. I'm recording on Sunday, 17th of May in Denver, Colorado. I'm Kevin Lawler, and we watched the Rome final just a couple of hours ago where Sinner took out Casper Ruud in straight sets. We've got a bit of a down week now after two back-to-back Masters 1000s that are spread out over 2 weeks with Madrid and Rome. And Roland Garros starts this day next week. So while it is a down week, there are still four tournaments being played this week: two at 500 level and two at 250 level on the men's and women's side. So we're definitely going to get into those and preview them. Some of those had like one or two matches starting today, so unfortunately there's not betting for all of them, but there will be. Look, I'm hoping there might be by the end of the podcast, but if there's not, I'll hold off posting this and I'll clip it into the end before I do and post it. We do have prices up for WTA Rabat, so I have a couple of bets there. But before we get into all of that stuff, a couple of things to look back at from last week and some other news in the tennis world. So we'll start off with a look at Rome. Obviously, Sinner won again. That's his sixth Masters 1000 in a row, dating back to Paris last autumn. So he won Paris, he went off and won Indian Wells, he won Miami, he won Madrid, he's won Rome. It's getting a little bit silly. He's very, very, very hard to beat. I think that's 33 Masters 1000s in a row. Match wins, beating Djokovic's record, and it's very hard to see him losing at Roland Garros. He's now a minus 300 favourite to win the title in 3 weeks' time from today in Roland Garros. And, would you bet against him? Probably not. It's just hard to see how anybody touches him unless. There was one moment in the semi-final where he looked a bit strange health-wise. He was kind of looking like he was having a mild panic attack and really intense heavy breathing, holding his left knee at one point as well. But obviously he's going to have a week off now, or more than a week off. He probably won't be in action in Rome, in Paris, I would imagine, until the opening Tuesday, possibly the Monday. But I guess he'll get whatever he wants from the tournament organisers. So we'll see how that goes. But his win today over Ruud ended a 50-year wait for an Italian champion in Rome, which feels crazy to say, but I guess the right player never just came along. Probably the closest that anyone got was, Musetti got very close over the last few years, and Fabio Fognini probably over the years, but he won Monte Carlo, as we touched on in a previous episode of the pod. And the other thing is this now completes the Golden Masters for Sinner, which is basically he's won every Masters 1000 that there is to win, which is madness at his age and at this early stage of his career. Obviously Novak Djokovic has done that. Sinner is not far away from like completing tennis, which is the term for basically winning every single major tournament that there is to win. I think all that's left for him is Roland Garros and the Olympics. Also mad to say that, and he's a massive minus 300 favorite, like we just said, to win Roland Garros this year, and then there's an Olympics when 2-3 years time, so he go away and win that, and then that's it. It's crazy. And I guess then the thing would be, just chase and accumulate Grand Slams and try and catch up with those boys at the top. But he looks amazing, and well done to him. The last thing to say on Sinner is that he's actually on track now to go away and win the calendar Masters 1000, which has never been done before and will probably never be done by anyone, including Sinner. But he's got a chance. He's obviously won all of the opening ones, so he's got, I can't even think top of my head, but he's going to have Canada, whether it's Toronto or Montreal for the men, I don't know. And then he's going to have to win, Cincinnati, and then he would have Shanghai, and then he would have Paris. I think that's all that's left. Be amazing if he did. It's, they're all in hard court, which I think is his best surface still, so you never know. Stranger things have happened. It would fully depend on Alcaraz being, getting back to health and being ready when the time comes, but we'll see about that. Okay, the other thing I want to touch on from Rome, the women's side. So I had Coco Gauff outright, 11-1. I put her up at and backed her at, and I obviously had the Gauff Svitolina named the finalists at 80-1, which is delightful, super to win that, and it was nice profit for the week regardless of any other losing outcomes. So it was nice to be in the money for the week, and that's obviously what the whole point of this, I guess. But I was really annoyed by the Coco Gauff loss. She didn't really play her best tennis. I thought I watched a bit of the first set and I turned it off after that because it was just frustrating. I was like, I don't need to put myself through this. She was from memory. She was 4-2 up in the opening set, a point for 5-2 double break on the Svitolina serve. Didn't break. Got broken in the next game from 40 love up on serve, which is so annoying. And then had break points in the next game again and didn't break, and then got broken again. So basically from 4-2 up double break, lost I think four consecutive games to lose that set, and also lost the opening game of the next set. Then ended up getting it to a decider, and she got hammered in the decider, so you can't really complain. But well done to Svitolina. That's her third Rome title. The one thing I'll say for Svitolina, and the takeaway I have, is her forehand was always a weakness, and it doesn't look a weakness anymore. And the other thing is, she was way too passive and kind of counter-puncher game style for my liking. And she's not anymore. She's aggressive. She's going for it. She's the one bossing points at times. So I do really like this, whatever her coach, I think it's Andrew Bettles, has done. I really do like this game style from her at the moment. And the forehand feels heavy. So well done to her. She was always an athlete and a good defender and a good poacher and so on. But yeah, now she's starting to add in the kind of aggressive, heavy forehand. And that's making a big difference. So yeah, fair play. She thoroughly deserved her win. She beat Rybakina in the quarterfinals, Świątek in the semifinals, and Goff in the finals. That's no joke. Like, that's amazing. So well done to her. Pity for I had a nice bet on Goff at 11-1 pre-tournament. So pity that one didn't cash. But obviously, like I said, the Svitolina Goff named the finalist market was a really pleasant winner at 80-1 for any listeners who backed it. Okay, French Open wildcards briefly. On the ladies' side, really nothing notable. There's a ton of French players, as you would expect. And then there's a reciprocal wildcard for the US players and the Aussie players for their Grand Slams, which is a thing that all of the Grand Slams do. And they have this agreement. We'll give your country a wildcard. And then when it's our turn to host a Grand Slam, you give us a wildcard. And that's, a nice way of working it. I thought the French Open also had an agreement with the LTA for, a reciprocal Wimbledon one, but there isn't any Brits in the list, so I'm assuming that deal is ended. On the men's side, the two notable names, which I'm delighted to see on there, and I'm sure any tennis fans listening to the pod will already know, they have given both Gaël Monfils and Stan Wawrinka, who are retiring at the end of this season, they have given both of those main draw wildcards, and I'm delighted for that. That is brilliant. And not only have they done that, they're also scheduling, a night for Gaël Monfils and friends, and I think they might be doing something similar for Stan Wawrinka. So they're really, making a kind of song and dance about the two of them. And proper order, Monfils has been a legend of French tennis for the guts of 2 decades, and Wawrinka is a French Open champion and 3-time Grand Slam champion around in the toughest era of tennis. So well done to the two of those, and well done to the French Association for coming up with main draw wildcards for them. Quickly before we get into this week, then we're going to keep it relatively short, but we'll get into the 4 tournaments in a moment. I just wanted to touch on a couple of withdrawals, notable absences and withdrawals for this week. So I guess the Hamburg has been the tournament that suffered the most with withdrawals. Zverev pulled out, which is maybe not a surprise, but Zverev is, he's won that title before. He's from Hamburg, so it's his home city. He pulled out. He went fairly far in Madrid and Rome, so I guess he's feeling like, he's played enough tennis and he's tired now and he just wants to relax. So he's not playing, which I totally get, and I actually think it's completely the right move from his perspective. João Fonseca has just pulled out, so he was the name now that they were depending on with Zverev out, but he has pulled out and cited a right wrist injury. So whether or not he is injured, I don't know. I guess we'll find out at Roland Garros, but he's out. Also out of that tournament, Lorenzo Musetti, Jiri Lehečka, Tomas Mahash, and Rafael Hodar. So they have been decimated. This has gone from a very good tournament, as we'll see in a moment when we get into it, to a relatively weak tournament in parts. It's always been kind of one of the stronger 500s on clay, and now it's not. And you'll even see there are players who have withdrawn from Geneva, which is a 250, and entered into Hamburg. So they were like, nah, we don't want to play qualies in Hamburg, we'll just go to Geneva. And now, because Hamburg has been so decimated, they've gone to that tournament. So that's interesting. And then the other big name and a more minor name, Marta Kostyuk pulled out of Strasbourg. She cited a hip injury. Again, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. I guess I'm impartial. Maybe it's a tiny bit surprising because she pulled out of Rome, so she's had two and a bit weeks off now. And I thought she would have liked to get a match or two, but her form is still staggering. She's played 12 matches this clay season and won 12. She won WTA Rouen and she won WTA Madrid. So her form is right there, but I thought she would have liked a little tune up ahead of Roland Garros, but yeah, apparently not. And then Haley Baptiste has also pulled out, so whatever. I don't really mind seeing that. I guess she had a lovely run in Madrid. Not as good a week in Rome or 2 weeks in Rome, but her level is there. So let's see what she can do when the time comes in Paris in a week's time. All right. We're going to get straight into the tournaments. Let me pull up the draw as I am talking about them, and we're going to start in Hamburg. Drink of water. Before we start in Hamburg, 2 things to say about Hamburg. This tournament, I was looking at the history of this tournament. This is phenomenal. This tournament started in 1892. Like, tournaments don't start that. This is crazy. This has been going back, and it's like, there are a couple of years where it wasn't played, or war times or whatever, and they missed out. But this tournament was played in 1892, and there's full lists of winners and runners up for every year and the scorelines if you go onto Wikipedia and look. It's crazy. Usually a lot of these tournaments are starting in 1988, or some of them even later, the early 2000s. 1892, bananas. The other thing I wanted to say about this tournament was, when I was backpacking around Europe in summer of 2016, a friend of mine and myself, we made a pit stop at this tournament. We were both tennis fans, and we made a stop off for, I don't know if it was 1 day or 2 days, maybe 2 days at this tournament. Really enjoyed it. Met a couple of the players. I have a picture with Leonardo Mayer. I have another picture with Philippe Kohlschreiber, another one with Paul-Henri Mathieu, and another one with Damien Dumassoir, who, for those of you listening, no, he's not a player. He was the umpire. But he was pretty cool. He was actually very cool. It's a great tournament. I'm going to use one of those pictures as the tag or the thumbnail for the pod this week, just for the crack. But an interesting nugget of information. I've been to 2 500s. I've been to plenty of slams and some other big tournaments, 1000s and stuff, but I've only been to 2 500s from memory. One of them was this one in 2016, Hamburg, and the other one was Rotterdam, and I can't remember the year. It might have also been 2016, or it might have been 2017, whatever. The interesting part is that Martin Klizan won both tournaments, which is mad because I should have looked it up before the pod, but he hasn't won many tournaments. He's retired now. I'm fairly sure he only ever won 2 500s, and the 2 500s that he won were the only 2 500s that I've ever been at. So Martin Klizan, I'm going to clip this section. I'm going to send it to you on Instagram, and I want a cut of your prize money if you still have any of it, because I feel like I'm your good luck omen. But there we go. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, we're going to dive straight into this and start with the draw. I don't want to really go through all of the quarters and stuff for these 250s and 500s all the time, but just because there is no betting, it's not like I can just pick out 2 or 3 players and talk about them. So we'll go really briefly through the quarters, but it won't be looking at all the players. In the first one, I'm like, Felix Auger is the top seed, and I'm underwhelmed with him on clay, to be honest. Vit Kopriva stands out here. He's had a very nice clay season. He plays Auger in the first round, but he's not a player that Felix will want to see in his draw. Kopriva's had some lovely wins this clay season, and when the prices were up yesterday, I regret not jumping on it, because who knows what they'll open back up with now. But yeah, like, there were 2 matches today. Francis Tiafoe beat a guy I never heard of, and Tommy Paul beat Ethan Quinn in the bottom quarter. But Kopriva was there at about 125 to 1, and given how the field is relatively weak, and as you're about to see, the field is very lopsided with some of the withdrawals. We had João Fonseca withdrew, and the field is lopsided. So I wouldn't mind a go at Vit Kopriva if I could get 125 to 1 each way with a half the odds, but we'll see when it goes back up. But Kopriva's there in the top quarter. Tiafoe's in the top quarter as well, but honestly, he fits into the underwhelmed bracket along with Felix Auger for me. He was fine in Houston, and he hasn't done anything since. So not someone that I would be looking to take on or to bet on here this week. Like, he's always going to be that kind of short price as well, because he's a big name. So he'll probably be an easy pass for me, depending on when the prices go back up. The second quarter has 3 names in it. We have the defending champion Flavio Chaboli, and he's had a good season, to be honest. So he's someone that I think, I saw him yesterday around 20-1, and I would actually certainly be interested in betting him at 20-1 each way if I could get a half. I don't think this should be a half. I think the bottom half is way more loaded than the top half. So let's see when it goes back up. But Chaboli is, for me, the favourite to make the final out of the bottom half. The only thing is, there's 2 players in there. So his first round is against the qualifier. And who is the qualifier? Ignacio Bus, the Peruvian. And I mentioned in a comment on Instagram, or maybe it was on this pod a few times, he's been super this season. He has been a real breakout and a breakthrough, and he's kind of made himself a mainstay in these 250s and 500s now, and he feels at home in them, whereas a year ago he would have been a challenger player. So well done to him, and he's going to be a tough one for Chaboli. He's very much a clay quarter. And if Chaboli gets past Buse, which I would imagine he will, his first match, or his next match, is going to be against Jakub Mensik. And Mensik is a really, really good player. He lost to Popyrin in Rome, which was a surprise. But I don't know, Popyrin's a strange player. I don't really rate him, but sometimes he can come out in red line and serve huge and just go for everything and be ultra aggressive. So I'm kind of willing to forgive Mensik that one. But Mensik would be a name that if we were getting a big price just because of the draw, because he's going to play Chaboli in the second round, Mensik would be someone I would take on here. So, or sorry, that I meant to say that I would actually bet on here and like to be on. So for me, looking at that top half, the 2 favourites to come out of it, even though they're going to play each other early, I think Chaboli and Mensik for me are the ones that I would like to keep an eye on betting wise. And then after that, if I had to play a dark horse, the one I would like to be on is Vit Kopriva. Obviously he plays Felix first round, so he's expected to be out in round 1, but if you're getting 125-1 to test it out, I want to test it out. And then we're looking at the bottom, so the third quarter is actually tough, and the third quarter is tough, and then quarter 4 has both Tommy Paul and Ben Shelton, both guys who need tons of clay matches under their belt to get to Roland Garros. So we'll get to that in a moment, but it tells you why you want to be on someone each way in the top half, preferably Chaboli or Mensik, or one of those 2 dark horses, Buse or Vit Kopriva. So bottom half, you've got Darderi coming fresh off a semi-final in Rome. You've got Alejandro Davidovich Fokina in the third quarter too, Francisco Cerundolo in the third quarter, and Alex de Minaur. So de Minaur is obviously a very interesting one here. He's the big name in this third quarter, but he had a round 1 loss in Madrid to Rafa Hodar, and he had a round 1 loss in Rome to Arnaldi, the Italian. Both of those boys that he lost to are very good on clay, but like de Minaur is the top 10 guy. He shouldn't be getting beaten in an hour against Rafa Hodar, who's having his debut year on tour. So interesting to see if he can bounce back. In terms of needing matches ahead of the French Open, de Minaur fits that bracket really nicely. So he's not someone that, usually a top 10 guy is in a field a week before a slam and you're like, is he going to try? I'm pretty sure de Minaur is going to, he's trying, he's here to win a title if he can. So I'm probably leaning towards de Minaur here. I think Darderi was completely gassed in that semi-final in Rome. I think, I was going to say Holger Rune. Casper Ruud beat him 6-1, 6-1. And obviously Darderi had come through Zverev, and he had come through whoever it was again after Zverev, I forget. Rafa Hodar as well. So I kind of like de Minaur here. Again, the only problem with de Minaur is he has Francisco Cerundolo in round 1. And Cerundolo is a pretty elite player on clay. He lost to Musetti in Rome. Now Musetti, it was a tight match. I think it was 7-6, 6-4. But Musetti on the last play or two, or the last couple of points, hurt his thigh. But Cerundolo is someone who does have the level on clay, and he has the level to beat de Minaur. So be very interesting to see. You would want to get a bit of a price on de Minaur to take him. That price has to acknowledge the fact that he's without a win now in over a month, and he's playing a pretty tough draw here in a pretty tough quarter, in a tough half that if he makes it through the quarter, he's going to have to play either Tommy Paul or Ben Shelton. That bottom quarter has Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton, Terence Atmane, Thomas Martin Echeverri, and Daniel Altmaier, the German. So it's a tough section. Ben Shelton very much fits the same mould as Alex de Minaur. So Shelton comes in with a round 1 loss in Madrid to Dino Prismic, followed by a round 1 loss in Rome to Nicolas Basilashvili, the Georgian. So back-to-back round 1 losses for both de Minaur and Shelton. And Tommy Paul is not much better. He had a round 1 loss in Madrid, and then he won one match in Rome before a round 2 loss in Rome. Now, he did beat Ethan Quinn today, so I guess he's laying out his intentions nice and early for a run here. But that bottom quarter is tough, and that third quarter is tough. So overall, the bottom half is pretty good here, pretty loaded. You want to be on one of the guys that we already touched on in the top half. But as of right now, no books up with this. I don't know if they're waiting to see if there's someone withdrawing or if they need to reprice after Fonseca withdrew, but we'll see, and we'll come back to that later. But for now, top of my head, the ones I'm interested in are Choboli and Mensik, particularly in the top half, and betting them outright each way. And then, depending on the price, whether you got a lovely price on Busa or Capriva in the top, and again, each way. Obviously, anyone you would be betting in the top half would be an each way bet. Let's move on to Geneva. That's a 250 for the men. So, again, like, it's a weaker draw, but it's not an awful draw. I've certainly seen worse 250 draws. It is weak though, and there's the angle that you're going to see here from my immediate kind of takeaways from this draw are that there's a couple of challenger players coming in here in good form with challenger wins under their belt, and they're kind of the ones that I'm going to be taking a chance on when the prices go up, depending on the prices. Taylor Fritz is the top seed. Taylor Fritz hasn't played since Miami. It's his clay debut. I do not like clay too much for Fritz anyway. And the fact that he's coming back from injury here makes him a relatively easy swerve for me. Again, we don't have prices, but we'll see. It would need to be a big price for me to be interested in Fritz. He's quite likely to have Alexei Popyrin, who beat Berrettini and Mensik in Rome, so that's not an easy first match for Fritz after his first round bye. The interesting thing here, and I guess the reason that the betting isn't up, Casper Ruud is listed in the first quarter, the number 6 seed in the tournament. He's played and won 3 of the last 5 finals here, so this is a tournament that he obviously loves and does well at. I am certain that he's not going to show up at this tournament. I think it would be bananas if he showed up at this tournament. He played a Rome final today. What he needs to do, have a day off, recover, physio, massage, rest, get to Paris, easy hitting, get acclimated, ready for the start of a Grand Slam next week. He's coming in rejuvenated form. He does not need to be going to Geneva this week. So if he does, I will be massively surprised. I think what we will hear is Ruud either coming up with a fatigue reason or an injury excuse, but we'll see. It would be amazing if he did show up. And obviously keep an eye for books pricing like in the next hour or so before Ruud has withdrawn, as I'm pretty sure he will, because obviously you get paid in full usually if your selection wins, when a seed later pulls out, and Ruud would take up, like, if Ruud is in this and he was actually trying, he's a massive favourite to go ahead and win the title. He's probably like he's probably not far off, like plus 140, plus 150 kind of region, just given the field and how elite he is compared to the field to go ahead and win the tournament. So I'm pretty sure he's not going to play, so you get all that equity coming back out of the outright. There's one other player I wanted to mention in quarter 1 before I move on. Raphael Collignon, the Belgian. So he's played in He before today, he had a 9-match win streak going at challenger level with some decent players in there like Dino Prismic, Martin Landelus, Talon Griekspoor. So these are not easy challengers. And then he ended up losing the Bordeaux final today to Juan Manuel Cerundolo. He lost it 7-6 in the third. So they had a bit of a ding-dong battle. But Collignon hadn't dropped a set prior to today in 2 weeks. I think, look, it depends if he's tired or not, but he's certainly one that he's also in, like, he has Adrian Manarino in the first round, and then he's due to play Casper Ruud in the second round. But I think Ruud is going to retire. Manarino is borderline walking by on clay. So Collignon is very interesting. It just depends how fatigued he is, I guess. He's had a long week, but every match was straight sets up until the final today. So he's one that I'm really interested in, and let's see what price that goes up. Quarter 2 has Cam Norrie in there, and it has Mariano Navone. I don't see much else. I think Norrie, he lost in round 1 to Tirante in Rome, and he probably needs a bit of tennis under his belt. So I think Norrie will be motivated here. Navone had a win over Trunghiletti today in straight sets, his countryman. So that sets up a round 2 for Norrie and Navone. Navone obviously won the title in Bucharest a couple of weeks ago. He was the first winner that I ever had on this podcast. So we'll see there. But I think Norrie is probably a small level on clay above Navone. But we'll see what the prices are. Again, I would be relatively keen on Norrie. It's an easy enough quarter for him. And I would probably fancy him in the quarterfinal too, or expect that he would be favoured in the quarterfinal. It depends how Fritz looks on his return, and also depends what Ruud does or if he pulls out. But he certainly won't be a massive underdog in the final anyway, in the semi-final. And then the bottom half, again, it's not that strong a tournament, so I think the draw is pretty even and pretty split. Stan Wawrinka's in here in quarter 3. It's his swan song, so he's in the tournament, but I don't think he's going to do anything. I was kind of thinking, would there be a chance that he'd go all the way to a title here, but I just can't see it. His form isn't there. They gave him a wild card, which is nice of the tournament. You're going to see a ton of wild cards for Wawrinka this season. Mikkelsen is in there, but he's lost 3 matches in a row. Lerner Tien is in there. I wasn't impressed with him early in the clay season, but in Rome he did beat Damir Zumar and then he beat Sasha Bublik. So, he showed some signs of life there. There's a name in here, and it's ironic that I'm coming back to him again, but Stefanos Tsitsipas took a wild card into this draw. He lost round 1 in Rome to Thomas Mahash. I think he has a great chance here. I think the altitude, which is 1,200 feet in Geneva, it probably suits someone like him, who is a big serve and first strike type player, if he can get a weak return for his forehand to put away. So look, he has been good on clay. He has shown, again, kind of like Lerner Tien that I mentioned a moment ago, he's shown some semblance of form over the past couple of weeks. Probably Madrid was the best we've seen from Tsitsipas. So let's see what the prices are. It would need to be a price for me to get involved in Tsitsipas again. He's drawn Giovanni and Pesci Perricard in round 1, which is Tsitsipas's biggest weakness is his return of serve, and obviously Perricard is arguably the best server on tour. He's a freak. But his Perricard doesn't really have much else, particularly on clay. So you would still expect Tsitsipas to get through that one. So we'll see whether or not we take Lerner Tien or Tsitsipas there. But I think it'll be one of those two going through to a semi-final. And then the bottom half, there's 2 players that I'm really keen on. Arthur Rinderknech is and Sasha Bublik are the seeds, but they're neither of the ones that I'm interested in. Rinderknech's a big serve, but I don't like him on clay. Bublik, the altitude I guess suits him, but I think he's an ass, and I think he just doesn't give a shit about clay, and I think he probably is here for an appearance fee and wants to get to Roland Garros, and honestly probably doesn't care about Roland Garros either and just wants to get to grass. And then once it gets to grass, it's a different story. And a motivated Bublik is quite a dangerous Bublik. But I'm not interested in Bublik here. The 2 names that I'm interested in are, and they're playing each other in round 1, so we'll have to see what the prices are. But Laszlo Djere, the Serbian, who has been around for years and has won plenty of titles on clay, I really, really like him. And the other one is Juan Manuel Cerúndolo. So both are coming off challenger titles. Djere won a title in Hueras in Portugal. Now, it's a relatively weak challenger. I don't know if it was this week or the week prior. I think it was this week just gone. It was Hueras. I think it was the 4th challenger in a row in Hueras. But he didn't drop a set all week. He beat Emiliano Nava in the final, and it was a relatively straightforward and weakish field. But he's coming through there without dropping a set, and they weren't even close sets. So he's coming in form, and you wouldn't be worried about fatigue either. So I really like him. The other player that I mentioned is the one that beat Rafael Collignon, and that is the weaker of the Cerúndolo brothers, Juan Manuel Cerúndolo. And he has won a main tour title before in South America, so he's coming off that challenger title in Bordeaux, and the only set he dropped all week was to Collignon today in the final. So that was obviously a very high quality final. So the 3 names, I guess, cut the long story short here, the 3 names that I'm most interested in from a betting perspective, once we see the prices going up, are Rafael Collignon, Laszlo Djere, and Juan Manuel Cerúndolo. And what they all have in common is that they all played challenger finals today. And obviously Cerúndolo and Collignon played each other. So let's see when the books go up there. I'm also semi-interested in Tsitsipas, just given the draw. But we'll come back to that one once the prices are there. I didn't see any prices for this yesterday, and my guess is books are all wary of Casper Ruud, whether he was going to be here or not, and obviously the impact that has on the pricing. The other thing is that's interesting here, actually, I should have said it at the top of the show, but Tennis Abstract haven't done their ELO kind of outright models for this week's tournaments. And it just goes to show you how books won't go up, and like how dependent they are on that, and they might say they're not or this or that. They definitely look at it, and they definitely use it as a baseline for some of these outright pricing. So that tennis elo's not up, and it hasn't been updated, and then like none of the books have gone up. And what you always see is, like, I think it's usually, to give them credit, it's usually 365 that go up first, and then you'll see DraftKings will copy them, and then FanDuel will go up and whatever. But none of the books have gone up, so that kind of domino effect hasn't happened yet. So I'm sure it will happen later today, but it just hasn't happened yet. And then the last two tournaments, we're going to look at Strasbourg first, which is a 500, before we conclude with Rabat, which is a 250 in Morocco. One moment. Drink of water. Too much talking, not enough drinking. Okay, Strasbourg. It is an okay field. Like, honestly, it's pretty weak. I said it at the top of the show, but we lost Marta Kostyuk from the field here. She pulled out with a hip injury. So the number one seed is Victoria Mboko. And Mboko, I would say, along with Iva Jovic, is the best player in this draw. But she hasn't done anything on clay, and she has never done anything on clay. She lost round one in Madrid. She didn't play Rome. So she needs to be a big price for me to get involved. Now, she fits that same bracket as Alex de Minaur and Ben Shelton in that she needs matches under her belt. So I think she is a one seed that's motivated here, which is, not something you always get the week before a slam. I've said that before, but I do think, if she can go and win the match, she's going to try go and win the match. And I don't think she's thinking, I need to preserve myself for Roland Garros. She's looking at this as like, it's a chance for me to win a 500 on clay. And she has a super high level, like, let me be clear on that. So I do respect her game. She just hasn't done it on clay, but she's taken a wild card in here. She's the one seed with that wild card. Leila Fernandez is her likely quarter-final opponent. So Mboko got a bye to round one, and she's going to play Lois Boisson, the French, who beat Jinyu Wang today. So you would imagine that would be a fairly straightforward round one for Mboko. And then she's going to come up against Leila Fernandez, who also was in action today, and beat Jean, the French player. Straight set, 6-1, 7-5. So that's the quarter one. I think it's between those two players. Depending on the price, I would probably lean towards Mboko. And quarter two has a lot of names in there, and there's a couple of girls I probably like more than others. I should have said that Rybakina beat Ludmila Samsonova in the final here last year. Samsonova is the 6th seed, and she finds herself in here in quarter two. So Clara Tauson is in here. Jacqueline Christian is in here. Peyton Stearns, Dasha Kasakina, and Ludmila Samsonova. I would probably stay away from Clara Tauson unless we get a price that we weren't expecting. She's coming in off back-to-back retirements in Miami and Rome. She didn't play Madrid. Christiane is just like, she's not really someone I'm that interested in. I think she's kind of meh, which is not really a nice thing to say, I guess. But I don't see anything in her game that would have me rushing to bet her to win a tournament like this outright, unless it was a crazy high price. A player I am interested in, Peyton Stearns. She took out Maria Sakkari this morning in straight sets, 6-3, 6-1. Very clean kill. Peyton Stearns is a good player, and a good player on clay. I said it before, she has a forehand that could be on the men's game. She has a real tasty forehand, and I like her. So she's someone I'm very interested in pricing wise once the odds come out. And then her next opponent is the winner of Daria Kasakina and Ludmila Samsonova. Kasakina won a clay challenger 2 weeks ago. Now, it was an easy kind of weak challenger. But she did also have 2 easy wins in qualies here this week. Didn't even come close to dropping a set. So if Kasakina is coming in form, she's a super player on clay. I really, really like her game. I think clay is actually her best surface if she's playing well. She's a counter puncher. She's a good defender. She has that heavy topspin, particularly on the forehand side. So I'm very interested in Kasatkina. And then Samsonova, I said defending champion, huge game. She is coming in. She had awful form for a couple of months, but she has turned it around a little bit. She had a win in Rome, and she had a win in Madrid, lost in round 2 in both. She's not someone I'm putting a line through, but I imagine because she's seeded and she's defending runner-up here, that, you're not going to get a huge price on her. So I would probably rather take a flyer on Kasakina or Stearns, depending on price. And then, again, kind of like the Casper Ruud situation that we have in Geneva, we have Madison Keys as the 5 seed here, and she's top of the billing in the third quarter. I think that the reason the books are down is because she pulled out of the Paris Challenger final today. Diane Parry beat her. I think it was like 6-4, retired or something like that. Keys hurt her thigh, so she is almost certainly, I would say, almost like guaranteed that she's not going to show up here. So she's going to rest and see. I don't know the severity of that injury, whether she's going to make Roland Garros or not, but she won't give a damn about Strasbourg now. She'll be out. I don't know if they won't redo the draw because matches have already started. So that will be lucky loser will get in there instead of Keys to play Christina Buxa. So we'll see how that goes. But Keys is going to be gone. So the real standout in this section in quarter 3 for me, there's a couple of decent players in there. Diane Parry is in there, who just won the Paris Challenger this week, beating Keys in the final. A kind of weird win over her, but she did beat her. And then Emma Raducanu makes her season debut here. Now what I'm hoping is Raducanu gets some of the, what I like to call the Dimitrov effect. And the Dimitrov effect is someone who is aesthetically pleasing, whether it's their tennis or their physical looks or whatever. They have a high ceiling, but they don't necessarily back it up week on week. And I think Raducanu fits that bill. And I think what I mean by that is they're often shorter priced than they should be and take up too much equity, and they're great to oppose. I saw some data on this one time about opposing Dimitrov, and it was like a really good strategy if you continue to oppose him as favourite, that you would have been very profitable. I forget the time period, but it was certainly interesting. And I think Raducanu, like, I'm kind of joking, but she fits into that same bucket a little bit in that, you know, she won a slam, yeah, so she has a high ceiling, and, you know, she's stylish and she's young, she's very popular, and she's, you know, whatever. Which brand was it? Was it Uniqlo or was it On? I think it was On went out of their way to sign her and like do a massive deal with her recently. Maybe it was Uniqlo, I can't actually remember. But anyway, I'm kind of talking to my ass a little bit. Iva Jovic is the girl here that I want to keep an eye on. Jovic is the 3 seed. She is certainly the best player in this bottom half. Keys is now out of this section, so Jovic has to play Emma Navarro. Emma Navarro beat Sarah Bejlek today, but Navarro has been rubbish. I mean, real rubbish over the past couple of months. Like, her game has deserted her, and I was such a big fan of her. She was great. She has just fallen off the face of the earth. So today is a win over Bejlek. Bejlek is a player I'm high on, but Bejlek has been injured for like a long time, and she just came back. I think she was injured since Charleston, and she's missed every tournament since. So I'm not at all reading into this win for Navarro. It just depends on Jovic. Jovic is borderline for me in that bracket of players. Like, I don't know if they're going to be really trying this week or if they just want to get to Paris for Roland Garros. So if she's trying and if she's bought in, I can see her winning this trophy on Saturday and then going to Paris. I think she probably will be bought in. So I think she should be favoured for this tournament, just given the draw and how it's worked out. Like, you know, there are enough big names in the top half now with Mboko that, you know, she's going to be guaranteed tough matches. Jovic has a relatively straightforward quarter right now. And then, like, the number 2 seed is Ekaterina Alexandrova. And anybody listening to the pod, like, Jesus Christ, Alexandrova has won 2 of her last 10 matches. Speaking of, you know, falling off the face of the earth, she's number 1 candidate. So the other girls down there, Marie Buzkova is the 8th seed, and she's the other seeded player in that bottom quarter. And actually, again, there's no pricing up here, but I saw her at 33-1 yesterday. I didn't back it, but I'm very interested in that, particularly each way. She won a title, as we know. I had a bet on her, and I put her up on the pod in the first week of launching the pod, and she won in Bogota at 9-1. She has been out relatively early, I think round 1 actually, in both Madrid and Rome, but, you know, I could forgive the Madrid one coming off. I think she played Billie Jean King Cup after Bogota, and that was the week before Madrid, so I can forgive that one. And then, you know, whatever, she lost a match in Rome. But she's got a decent level on clay. I do like her on clay. She's a good defender. It's not that strong a quarter, but it's certainly not weak. She has Siniakova in round 1 and probably Alexandra Ela in round 2. Or, Jesus, I don't even know how to pronounce this girl's name, the Ukrainian, Alexandra Olniakova. I didn't do a bad job of that. And Anne Lee is in there too. I would expect Anne Lee to get past Ekaterina Alexandrova down at the very bottom, and then one of those to play probably Buzkova in a quarterfinal. So we'll see. Jovic is the class of the field. Mboko is an interesting one given her pedigree, but her lack of history doing anything on clay. And then there are some kind of longer shots that we'll see when the pricing come out, particularly Stearns and Kasakina. And Marie Buzkova. So again, I'll tag it on to the end of this, but we're moving on to the last tournament, which is WTA Rabat, and actually the only tournament that I do have odds for. So let me open up the draw before I go any further. Look, it's a 250, so it's a weak field, and to prove it's a weak field, you don't need to look any further than who is the 1 seed. And the 1 seed is Janice Chen. She had a round 1 loss in Charleston, a round 2 loss in Madrid, and a round 1 loss in Rome. And she's going to have a loss here, you would imagine, as well. Look, it's not a strong field, so I guess she could go on and do something, but I think she'll be out to Camila Osorio in round 2. Osorio is the other girl here. I just mentioned her, but she's the other... I think Pana Udvardi, the Hungarian, is also in this section, and Ayla Tomiljanovic, but Tomiljanovic is a bigger name than... it's harsh to say a bigger name than she deserves credit for these days, but I don't have any interest in her on clay. She's a scrappy player these days. Udvardi will probably come through that bottom half of this section and make it to the quarterfinal, and I think she'll play Camila Osorio. Osorio made it to the semi-final in Parma the week just gone. There was a challenger in Parma. She lost to Barbora Krejcikova. I think it was 7-5 in the third, so that was obviously a good level, and Osorio has a very good level, so she's the girl for me to come through that first quarter. Then we move into the second quarter, and I think the best player in the field is in the second quarter, and she's not even seeded, but it's Angelina Kalinina. She is a really, really good player. Look, she's probably a few years past her prime. She certainly is. She went on this like crazy good 10-match win streak. It was a challenger level win streak in March, but she's won a ton of matches. She did fine in Madrid and Rome, won a couple of matches in both. She's not a player anyone wants to play against. She's Ukrainian. I'm going to latch onto that. We had a nice Ukrainian winner in Madrid with Kostyuk, another Ukrainian in Rome with Svitolina. So maybe it's the time of the female Ukrainian winners, and Kalinina can add to that. She was my first and only bet this week yesterday. Bet365 had her at 11-1, and I backed that each way with a half. So... I like her draw. I think she's the best player in the field. Given her age, I would probably... The main concern I would have for her would be her fitness. So, like, you want her winning in straight sets, and if she's not winning in straight sets, things start to get a little bit tough. So... I still do like her at 11-1, and she's one of the bets that I'm putting up here. There's another girl in the quarter, though, that's a danger, and that's Anna Bondar. Bondar made a quarterfinal in Rouen, and just listen to this. In Madrid, she beat Elena Svitolina, and then she lost to Mira Andreeva 7-6 in the third. So her level is there, and she's 14-1 with both FanDuel and DraftKings. So I think there's a chance those two are the best two players in the field. Jessica Buzas Monero will probably have something to say to that, but those for me are the best three players, and then probably Osorio, and there's a few others. But I do think both of those are worth a bet if you can get like 10-1, 11-1 on Kalinina, and then there's 14-1 out there on Anna Bondar. I think you have a very good chance of getting a finalist out of betting those two. And then the third quarter is just so bad. It's really, 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 really bad. It's so bad that you know what, I was going to say if Alicia Parks doesn't make the semi-finals from that draw, that she needs to forget about clay tennis, but there is the one player that you probably don't want to play in here is the player she's going to play first, and that's Uchijima, the Japanese. So Uchijima did win a clay challenger back in April, so she's no stranger to success on clay, and when she's playing well, she's actually a decent player. So she's actually, purely because of the draw, Uchijima at 40-1. It's kind of funny what's going on here. She's 40-1. I think it's with 365. 40-1 with DraftKings. She's 12-1 with both 365 and FanDuel. So I think the true price is probably somewhere in the middle, but I'm definitely betting the 40-1 with DraftKings while it's still there. Just listen to this. It's Jill Teichmann, Graver, Tatiana Maria, Alicia Parks, and 2 local wildcards. That's the quarter. So it's there. Whoever stands up and plays the tennis. Parks is the kind of player I love watching Parks play, and she's dangerous, and she has a huge game, huge serve, huge ground strokes, but it just depends. If you get the Parks, the version of her that shows up and makes errors, just forget about it. It's a hugely frustrating watch. So I think Uchijima is probably not a great matchup for Parks, but whoever wins that match should be looking at a semi-final spot. And Uchijima, like I said, is 40-1 with DraftKings, while Parks, I think, is 16-1 to win outright. So I much prefer the Uchijima price, and I would bet her at 40-1, and I would probably also bet it each way because she's a significant underdog in the final if she got there. And then the bottom quarter, 3 names. Well, I guess the biggest name here is Jess Bouzas Monero. She's the second seed. She lost to Pliskova in Rome, and she lost to Diane Schneider in Madrid. So, nothing too bad there. And she's also made a semi-final in Parma last week, just like Osorio did. She lost to the eventual champion, Diana Yastremska, and I think she also lost 7-6 in the third. So, along with the 2 girls I mentioned earlier, Angelina Kalinina and Anna Bondar, I think Bouzas Monero is the next best player in the draw, or some combination of those 3 are the best 3 players in the draw. And the other name I was looking at, she's like 50-1, maybe worth a look. I haven't decided whether I'm going to bet her or not, but I'll take a look later. Fiona Ferro. So she won a clay challenger in April. It was a relatively weak challenger. She also lost round 1 in Paris, just gone, a challenger in Paris. She lost to Madison Keys, but she won 2 matches in qualifiers just now, and she beat Avanesian. I think she's Armenian. I'm not certain, but like, she's a decent player. So yeah, just with the way the draw is, Ferro is, she plays Danka Kovanic, who, that's a pretty easy draw for round 1, but then she's going to have Bouzas Monero. So 50-1 if you want a flyer, it's certainly fine to take a go on Ferro at 50-1, but my preference would be Uchijima each way at 40s, and then I really like Kalinina at 11s, and I really like Bondar at 14s in this tournament. So I've already bet Kalinina, I'm going to bet Bondar, and yeah, I'll have a smaller bet on Uchijima. But that's the only tournament we have pricing for. I am going to hold off and clip the prices on in the next couple of hours when they come out to the end of this pod and post it all in one go. And then please do follow along and listen out throughout the week. Subscribe, share with your friends. I'm on Instagram and I'm on YouTube and I'm on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So the only ones I'm not on, I guess, are Twitter or TikTok. So if you do follow, please do follow on mainly YouTube and Instagram, to be honest. I would appreciate it. Or sign up and listen on Spotify or however you listen to your podcasts. I usually have at least 1 podcast a week and maybe 2 episodes, and then plenty of reels and shorts kind of daily, reacting to what's happening on the tour, how the matches and how the bets are going. So I would certainly appreciate it if you follow along, if you do enjoy listening to the show. So thanks a million for listening, and I'm going to clip on the bets at the end of this. Ciao. Hello, for the observant ones among you. I am back. It's still Sunday in Denver. It's 10 p.m. and we have lines out for all the tournaments. So I was waiting for this basically before I was able to post this afternoon's pod. So I'm going to clip this onto the end of the pod and post it all in one episode. But for anyone watching on YouTube, yes, this is why it looks dark now and it was bright earlier. Okay, I'm going to keep this as short as I can. Let's do the same as earlier. We're going to start with Hamburg for the men, the 500. 365 have this price to 157%, so it's pretty shitty. It's not great bookmaking. They've just tagged on a ton of over round and they're like, fuck it, the market's up. So it's a disappointing one, but Bet Rivers came to the rescue a little bit. So I have a couple of bets here that I am willing to bet, or that I am going to bet. Let me open up the draw, sorry. Okay, first bet I'm going to do, Bet Rivers are up at 18-1 for Flavio Chaboli. I think I said earlier he's defending champ. Yes, he is, and he's had a super season, so I'm keen on that. 18-1. He's about 8-1 at some of the other books. Now, I think they're being stingy, but I also think the 18-1 is quite nice. We won't go over it again. He has a tough enough draw, to be fair, but I like him at that price, and I think he's here and he's motivated and he's been playing high level tennis. So that's my first bet. I'm taking Flavio Chaboli at 18-1 and I'm betting him each way, or I already have bet him each way. And then the other one I'm also going to take, he's double the price with Rivers as he is at other books, and that's Vitko Priva. I mentioned him on the pod earlier. All the other books are gone back up at 50-1. I have bet him at 100-1 each way, so 50-1 to make the final. He's in a tough section. He's got Felix Auger, the top seed, first, and then he's probably got Francis Tiafoe in a quarterfinal. The other one I'm going to bet is actually Tiafoe, so he's 28-1. That one you can get with DraftKings, and I think he's 25 with 365. So the 28th is with DraftKings plus 2,800. He's already through a round, 6-4, 6-4 first round, so he's already into the round of 16. He's one win away from, I'm going to butcher this name, Kamil Majrzak, the Pole, who's coming back from a long time out, who's playing against Ugo Carabali, so the Argentinian who dropped out of Geneva to be here once the field got decimated. So Tiafoe is very likely going to be in a quarter final. that quarterfinal could be against Vic Kopriva or Felix Auger, but like, you know, Tiafoe is still a decent player on his day. His form hasn't been there in Madrid and Rome, but he's someone I think will be motivated to go far and go deep in the draw this week. So when you look at the likes of Tommy Paul and Ben Shelton at like 6-1, 7-1, I can't square it away that Tiafoe is 3 or 4 times the price there. So I am going to bet Tiafoe. I haven't bet that one yet, but I am going to bet Tiafoe at 28-1 outright. And then, yeah, I think that's all. I was kind of tempted. Actually, I am going to bet Deminar to win his quarter at 4-1. So Deminar is in there with Francisco Cerundolo. I think Cerundolo is a little bit too short in the match betting in that one. And then the winner would play Davidovich Fokina or Karatamute. And then the quarterfinal will be quite likely against Luciano Darderi. But we saw how empty his tank was in the Rome semi-final. There's a decent chance that he's coming in here gassed or semi-gassed. So I don't mind Deminar at 4-1. I won't have a huge bet on it, but I'll probably bet that as well. So yeah, those are the bets. The 3 outrights, just to confirm: Choboli, Kopriva. Choboli 18-1, Kopriva 100-1, Francis Tiafoe 28-1. And then a small quarter bet on Alex Deminar to win his quarter at plus 400. All right, keeping it short as promised, let's move on to Geneva. I love a bet or two in this. I honestly, I'm going to curse a little bit. I can't believe my fucking mind with this one. So let me make sure the prices are still the same. I'm just going to open it up. FanDuel are the only book up with this. Nobody else is up. And what I said earlier about Tennis Abstract not being up is certainly a factor here. And also what I said earlier about DraftKings just blatantly copying 365 as soon as they go up is also very active here. Yeah, the prices are still the same. I'm kind of blown away here. I went through my thoughts on this earlier, so I'm not going to repeat myself. FanDuel in their wisdom have priced Casper Ruud plus 380 favourite, and they've priced Alexander Bublik plus 440 second favourite. Between the two of them, they're taking up the guts of 40%, almost 40% of the book. I don't think Ruud will play. If Ruud does play, I think he's tanking, and I think he's losing early, whether it's first round or second round. He is in prime position, draw dependent, to make another final at Roland Garros. He's coming off a final yesterday in Rome. Yesterday by the time you're listening to it. He does not give a shit about ATP Geneva. He wants to be in Paris. I cannot believe that they've gone up favourite here. Look, they're in somewhat of a hard position because obviously if he was here, motivated, trying, you know, he's playing his best tennis. Yeah, but we said it earlier, he's a massive favourite in the tournament. None of those things are true. He's playing well, but he's not here to win the tournament. So I stand over that. If I'm wrong at the end of the week, so be it. I'll take it and I'll fall on that sword. Alexander Bublik plus 440. Come on. Like, we called out his performances earlier. Let me look at my notes. I didn't even write them down. I think I did. Basically my main note around Bublik was he's waiting for grass, and I totally stand over that. If he goes on and wins Geneva, fine. Let's look at his most recent results. So he lost round 1 in Munich to Alex Molcan. He lost round 1 in Madrid to Stefano Tsitsipas. He beat Sebastian Baez in Rome, and then he lost to Lerner Tien. So 3 losses in his last 4. I don't think he cares too much about here. I think he probably cares more about here than Casper Ruud cares about here, but that's not saying a lot. And look, Bublik is a kind of player who could go on and win. Plus 440, I think he should be at least 14-1 here, closer to 20-1 than 14-1. So I'm amazed that they've priced Bublik this short. Again, he can go and win, fine. I'm grand with that, but I won't be on him. There's a million better bets here. The third favourite is the top seed, and I wouldn't put anybody off betting Taylor Fritz at plus 1,000, so he's 10-1. I'm not going to bet that. It's his comeback, but I think it's a way fairer price than I was expecting to be quoted on Taylor Fritz in this tournament. So 10-1 for Fritz is fine. He's already into the round of 16. He's got a bye in round 1, so it's not a bad setup for him at all. He'll have Popyrin, and then he's going to be a major beneficiary of Ruud pulling out or losing early, which I maintain that he will. And then the other guy that I mentioned on the pod earlier is Raphael Collignon, the Belgian, and I was keen on him. He went 9-match win streak and then lost in a final today in a challenger to Juan Manuel Cerundolo. Now Collignon is 13-1, so barely a bigger price than Fritz, and I saw the highlights of that final earlier. By the way, a massively contentious final in that challenger. There was a point, I think it was 3-2 in the deciding set breaker. Cerundolo was serving, he served a super serve up the middle. Colin Young hit the return out, and as the ball was in the air, the line judge said out on the serve. The call was way late, and you can watch replays back. Didn't affect Colin Young at all, and the umpire made them replay the point. And Colin Young, didn't own up or didn't say sorry, it was too late, it was fine, it's your point. There's no onus on him to do that, but Cerundolo was surely pissed. But anyway, my point here is Colin Young. Not only did he lose that, he's 13-1, while Juan Manuel Cerundolo is 50-1, and Cerundolo beat him in the final today. But the other thing is, Colin Young came off the court today with his knee strapped up. Terrible sign, and he's obviously played 2 weeks back to back here, so he's a massively easy avoid or sway or miss at 13-1, so won't be touching that. I mentioned Tsitsipas on the pod earlier. I would have taken him at a decent price, 13-1. I don't have any interest in Lerner Tien plus 1100, 11-1, no interest there either. So they've just gone way short on a couple of players that I don't think are anything special. And then my first bet is going to be Cam Norrie at 18-1, so plus 1800. I really like Norrie here. He's got a nice draw. He is defending semi-final points, so that's one way of knowing that he's locked in and he's here to perform and he's here to try and make a run at a title. I like his draw. Let me just check the draw again. Yeah, so he's got Mariano Navone in the first round. Now, I love Navone. I really like him on clay. Navone is 16-1 outright. I can't square it away that he is a shorter outright price than Norrie. I think Norrie has a much higher ceiling. And then I like their route. Like their quarterfinal is quite likely to be Jaume Munar. And if it's not Munar, it'll be Francisco Comisana probably, or Basavaredi. So it's a pretty weak draw. And then it would probably be Taylor Fritz if he hasn't lost by that point. But Taylor Fritz is back very early here. He hasn't played clay all season. He's coming back from injury. You don't know what you're getting, and you're getting Rude. You're getting Norrie at almost double the price. So obviously, if Rude pulls out or withdraws or whatever, doesn't show up, loses early, tanks, Norrie is a big beneficiary there, being in the second quarters of the same half as Rude. So my first bet is Norrie at plus 1800. I really like that. I have two other big bets that I'm about to get to. I want to open FanDuel again. First one, and they're playing each other in the first round. I alluded to it in the pod earlier. Laszlo Djere plus 5,000, so you're getting 50-1 on Laszlo Djere, who didn't drop a set all week in his challenger victory. And then the other one is 50-1 on Juan Manuel Cerundolo. So he obviously beat Colin Young in that challenger final today. He the only set Cerundolo dropped all week was in the final against Colin Young today. I really like both of those guys. I think you're going to see both of those really fight for a title here if they can. They play each other in round one, which is not ideal. The winner is likely to play Arthur Rinderknecht, which I would kind of fancy either of them to beat him, or at least push him a long way, and he's about 10-1 outright, or something really short. He's actually bigger than that, but I really like both of those guys on clay. And then the other one, I have one last bet here, and it's a little bit of a weird one, I know, and it's hard to look at it and say with any sense that this guy could go and win this tournament, but he has done well on clay before. He is a player with upside. He's a weird player who can come out on a week and just be tough. He's due to play Casper Ruud in the first round, and it's kind of why I like him. He's also in with Fritz, which is, again, potentially a reason to like him. Jensen Brooksby plus 8,000, so he's 80-1. I think it's a fair enough price. As I said, FanDuel are the only book up now, so let's see what some of the other books go later on any or all of these selections. But I quite like that price, and I'm going to have a small bet on that price. My favourite bet of all of them here is either Norrie at plus 1800 or Laszlo Djere at plus 5,000. But they're my bets. Cam Norrie 18-1, Laszlo Djere 50-1, Cerundolo 50-1, that's Juan Manuel, and Jensen Brooksby at 80-1. Two more to go. We're on to Strasbourg here now. So I think all the books are up for Strasbourg. I had written down, again, this is the one I didn't actually love anyone when I was looking at the pricing. I think Mboko is too short. Sorry, I opened Bet Rivers at the very end here, and I actually do have a bet at the top of the market. They've gone up, with everyone else gone up, Jovic at 5-1. Rivers have gone up 7-1 for Jovic, and I think that's very fair. I'm a tiny bit concerned that she goes out here and in her head she's like, already in Paris or wanting to be in Paris, but I don't think she's quite at that level that she can be skipping 500s to go to Paris. So I do think there's motivation there. Win a title on clay. I don't think she's expecting in her head to go and win Roland Garros just yet, but I do think she's that caliber of player that she can be winning slams pretty soon. So I really like Jovic. Her draw is Emma Navarro in the round of 16. That's already determined. I think she's a massive favourite there. Navarro had a win today, but it was against Sarah Bejlek returning from injury. And then Madison Keys is still in the betting and still in the draw. Madison Keys is not going to play. She's injured. She did her thigh today in Paris in the Challenger there. She's absolutely not going to play. So Jovic is in, like, she's due to play Keys in a quarter final. That's not going to happen. So it's either going to be Parry or Raducanu or Buxa or whoever comes in as a lucky loser. They can't redo the draw because the draw has already started. So it's a very nice first two matches to get to a semi-final for Jovic if she's in any way motivated. And then the semi-final, like the biggest seed left is Alexandrova in that half. Now I think there's a very decent chance it could be Buzkova, and to be honest, there are a couple of decent names down there, like Ann Lee is in the fourth quarter, Olnikova is there, Ayla, Siniakova, but like none of them are near Jovic's potential or talent level. So I really like Jovic at 7-1. I think she'd be a favourite over Mboko if she played her in a final. She'd certainly be a favourite over Fernandez or Towson. But like you can see from the names I'm rolling out, Fernandez, Towson, Stearns, Samsonova, Mboko, that top half is where you don't want to be. So the bottom half is where you do want to be. And I really like Jovic's path to a final here. So I'm going to bet Jovic at 7-1, outright winner. And then the other two names I had written down in the outright that I've since changed when I saw that Bet365 have quarter betting. I'm going to bet Marie Buzkova at plus 900 to win quarter four. Again, you know, she's in a tough-ish first match with Siniakova, tough-ish second match with Olnikova or Ayla, but like she's, you know, very much kind of, I could see both of those games being potentially close to pick'em. I think you could make a case for Buzkova to be favoured in both of them. And then the quarterfinal is either against Ann Lee or Katerina Alexandrova. So I just can't get to 9-1 for a girl who won a title on clay this season already and has, you know, demonstrated a decent ceiling in the past. So I am going to bet Buzkova to win quarter four at 9-1. And one bet I'm going to have, this is a little bit maybe contrary to what I was saying about Jovic, but I'm going to take 18-1 on Diane Parry. Parry is coming off a decent challenger win last week. If Jovic kind of has an eye on Paris and is distracted and is like, meh, feck it, I'll go to Paris, I think Parry is the girl to take advantage in quarter three. So Parry is going to play Emma Raducanu. It's Raducanu's clay debut. I will take Parry there all day. And then Madison Keys is due to be the second opponent who's going to pull out. And then it's Jovic probably in a quarter final. So if look, it's maybe a bit of a hedge for the Jovic one, but Jovic's head and shoulders better than her. I just think 18-1 with Keys about to come out, and I think Raducanu is a bit shorter than she should be. So I'm going to have a small bet on Diane Parry in France to go away and win this quarter at 18-1. So those are my bets there. Sorry, I do have one other bet. Jovic in quarter three is way too big. She's plus 125. So I think there's a borderline kind of $1.60. I could see a case for $1.70. So she's odds on to win this quarter no matter what way I look at it or price it. And she's plus 125 on 365, so that's a big bet. So I'm going to bet her to win the quarter and at plus 125. I'm going to bet her outright at 7-1, and then I'm also going to have a bet on Buzkova quarter four and a really small kind of saver bet on Parry 18-1 for quarter three. So that is Strasbourg. And I'm staying away from the top half there. And I think I touched on all of the Rabat ones earlier, but just really quickly to go over it again, I'm going to take Kalinina. I've already taken Kalinina at 11-1. That's now 10-1 outright. Again, there are some books that have her at plus 550, so there is still some value, I think, on the board at 10s. Anna Bondar, I haven't bet yet, but I'm going to bet at 14-1. And then I have two long shots. Both down in the bottom. I've got Fiona Ferro at plus 5,000 that I'm going to bet. That's with 365. And Uchijima, the Japanese, in quarter three. I'm going to bet her at plus 4,000 on DraftKings. And again, she's about 12-1. She is 12-1 on both 365 and FanDuel. So honestly, that's just because of how weak the quarter is. I said it earlier, but it's like Alicia Parks, Teichmann, Graver, a couple of local wildcards, and Tatiana Maria. So it's as weak as anything. So Uchijima has a decent chance to win that quarter, and then she's in as a semi-final, probably against, a significant dog against Jessica Buzas Monero, but I think at 40-1 you can certainly play that and bet it each way. That's what I'll be doing anyway. And then the top half, like I said, like Janice Chen is the top seed. It's just really, really weak. So Kalinina and Bond are the standout players for me in the top section. And then I'm gonna swerve the second seed, which is Jessica Buzas Monero, and I'm going to take, like I said, a flyer on both Fiona Ferro and Uchijima. Ferro plus 5,000, I think, is a pretty fair price. She's come through decent in qualifiers. She's going to come up against Buzas Monero probably in the second match, so she'll be a decent dog there. But that's going to be my pick. So there you go. Couple of bets from each tournament. Pretty excited about the week. Follow along for stories and reels and shorts throughout the week, reactions to matches, bets as they come up and as they arise. I'll certainly put that stuff up and do my best to follow along, keep everyone updated. There may also be some futures bets throughout the week as things get revised later into the week. But please do like and subscribe and follow along on Instagram and YouTube or Spotify if you listen there. Thank you very much for listening. Ciao.